Welcome back to Mingus on Tech for February 28th, 2017. I'm here with Lucas Mirian from Computer World, Keith Shaw from Network World. We're here to talk about wireless charging on the iPhone, self-driving cars that are never going to be self-driving, and the gadget of the week. Special thanks to Chris, our producer, for those lovely graphics, which we're going to be doing more with over the next few weeks. So, all right, here's what prompts my question, Lucas. You did a story last week about self-driving cars. We've heard a lot about autonomous driving cars. You know, Tesla's doing lots of things like that. The story you had is that self-driving cars will never really be self-driving because there are all kinds of issues that come up. So explain to me, or explain to the people who might really want to be in a car where they're not driving. Not me. I like to drive. But everyone who's hoping that, you know, we're going to have this Minority Report future where you get in the car and it just jets you off to wherever, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So why?
Yeah, it may eventually, but I spoke to a couple of industry experts, an attorney, an IP attorney, and a computer science engineer from Carnegie Mellon University. And they both agreed that it's not going to happen anytime soon because every manufacturer is going to have their own flavor of software that's going to allow that autonomous car to drive itself.
Yeah.
And who's responsible if that car gets into an accident? Not to mention, how is it going to respond to every single situation that could arise on a highway, including that of that arises from cars that aren't self-driving?
Right.
Pedestrians walking into the roadway, infrastructure that's unknown. A tree falls into the road, things like that. Recently had an example of that, although Tesla has corrected the issue that allowed this to happen, was not found to be at fault, but a Model S crashed into the side of a 18-wheeler.
Well, that was the fatality from last year, right?
Right, right. The 18-wheeler was white. It kind of blended with the sky in the background, and the sensors, the cameras didn't pick it up. But ultimately, it was the driver's responsibility because he was supposed to be paying attention. In a Model S, you're supposed to have, in fact, your hands on the wheel at all times. And Tesla has upgraded the software so that you're required to have your hands on the wheel. It will warn you, I believe, a couple of times, and then it'll slowly take your vehicle off the road. If you don't, it'll drive you to the side of the road.
It's interesting because the technology is clearly there for
Right.
cars to or is rapidly getting to the point where cars could drive themselves. You do have the sensors. You've got, I mean, even, mainstream cars now. My car has like the lane keeping assistant, but it's the sort of thing where if you don't have your hands on the wheel, it will tell you,
Right.
it'll shake the wheel and say, put your hands on the wheel.
Right.
Well, what was interesting about your story was the fact that as many permutations of accidents and situations and incidents that you might have on the highway, they can't really model for everything.
No.
So you're in your autonomous car, it's 2022, driving down the highway with your hands off the wheel, dozing, reading the paper, I don't know.
Watching Netflix.
Watching Netflix. And suddenly, as you say, a tree falls or somebody steps out in front of you and the car maybe hits the tree or hits the person. Then the question becomes, who's responsible? Is it you? Because you're supposed to be theoretically, in charge of this car. Is it the manufacturer of the car that, built the hardware? Is it the software person who put together this software that should have seen the person or the tree or whatever and didn't? And so there are all these legal ramifications that and this often happens. Technology is getting ahead of where we are legally in terms of, we can do all of these kind of cool things, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the main issue with self-driving. I mean, would you be interested in
I
self-driving cars?
Yeah, I was at CES this year, and we did a video with a bunch of different companies that were working together to talk about the network connectivity for all of these self-driving cars, whether it's data for the car or broadband services for passengers in the car. And one of the companies that was there was a European insurance company. And once the insurance companies get involved,
Once you
you're
get
like,
the insurance companies,
you're like, oh, this is either a real thing, or they're gonna kind of prevent
Shut it down.
They're gonna shut it down. The insurance company was saying that they were trying to provide policies for like a rental car companies, like so maybe Hertz, gets out there and does a self-driving car. Before you start using self-driving mode, something pops up on the screen that says, all right, here's what you need to purchase. So they're here's what you need to purchase for this
In
trip.
terms of insurance
So it's going to
coverage.
be per trip. It's going to be per trip coverage for insurance. So I think that you're going to see self-driving cars not in the consumer space first, but it's going to be like the likes of Uber, rental car companies. Because last time you rented a car from either Hertz or Avis, you were offered the option of having that little GPS unit in your car,
Right. Which
before
sort of
all the
monitors
cars.
what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? Or
so
can.
yeah, and of course you've got all the sensors that are going to monitor everything in the car too. So I was surprised to see the insurance companies getting involved this early. But it also indicates that there's definitely interest out there for.
Well, interesting
this.
segue from that is that the UK's Department of Transport, which is basically the same as the United States Department of Transportation, has said that they're going to issue a rule that will require two types of insurance, one for the driver of the car and the other one for the robotics, for the autonomous driving features. So if once your car is in autonomous driving mode, the insurance will cover it. So that's one way they're addressing it. But as the IP lawyer I talked to noted, you are signing a contract when you purchase a car
Right.
to be responsible for everything about that car as long as it operates as it was
Designed to
manufactured
do.
to operate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
The interesting thing is, this is where Carnegie Mellon University comes in again. They're developing software that basically makes autonomous vehicles, or will make autonomous vehicles, self-aware in a way, because they need to know.
That sounds
it's
kind of
kinda
scary,
creepy, right?
So your car will know what it should do before you know what it should do.
Yeah, the cars need to know when they're operating outside of their operating parameters.
Okay.
So once they get into a situation where they know their software can no longer deal with the situation, whether it's something that's suddenly come into the roadway or they come to a five-way intersection that they're not programmed to handle, they alert the driver, who can then take over operation of the car again. And there's a lot of different examples. In fact, there's something, I was talking to the software engineer at CMU, and he said there's something called a ripple effect. So imagine, if you will, there's a car ahead of your autonomous vehicle.
Yeah.
Who slows down, so you slow down, your car automatically slows down to keep from hitting it.
Yep.
The car behind you also slows down to keep from hitting you, to the point where your car decides, well, I need to change lanes. Tries to change lanes, but there's cars on either side of it.
Right.
So there's a ripple effect happening because you have vehicles that are autonomous and non-autonomous on the roadway. And it needs to deal with that situation, but it creates this ripple effect where it can't deal with
It
this
can't do
situation.
anything. So what does it do? Just cuts out and says, okay,
Or
in the
human
split second,
takeover?
human takeover?
Human takeover, because you can react. You have
I
reasoning
can't
skills.
switch lanes, Dave.
Right, exactly. And you're not operating outside, your operating parameters. You can reason.
You better get off Netflix real quick.
Right. So that the other thing we're going to need with autonomous vehicles, I believe at least, and this is what the experts have said as well, is we're going to need vehicle-to-vehicle communications and vehicle-to-infrastructure communications.
Which is coming. I mean, Audi this year, has
Yeah.
a car that will read the stoplights and let you know how long you've got before
Exactly.
the light's going to turn green.
Right.
It's just a teeny little step into that
Right.
pool, but still, it's starting.
Yeah, you need that because you need to be able to know what the cars around you are about to do, or if the infrastructure has changed, or if there's bad weather, if there's an accident ahead. Your car needs to know what's coming up around the curve. So not just what's happening immediately in front of it, but what might be happening a mile or 2 miles down the road if there's been a serious accident or some kind of
Well,
infrastructure.
I can certainly see how if you've got, the vehicle-to-vehicle communications, which are slowly rolling out, infrastructure. I mean, you can see that if you're on the highway. I mean, we overlook a highway here in the office, and somebody breaks, and there's this ripple effect all the way down. You
Right.
know?
Right.
If the car that's 2 miles down the road can see that and say, oh, wait a minute, there's a bad accident up ahead, I'm going to detour off around. There are certainly lots of ways that this technology can be useful.
Yes.
In terms of improving traffic flow, minimizing accidents.
Yeah.
You know.
Just look at the deaths that occur every year. 32,000 people died in the United States last year from automobile accidents, and 94% of them were the fault of driver error.
Right. So if you can remove that, clearly, there are advances here. But, to get back to the original point, and then we should move on to the iPhone wireless charging thing. But to get back to the original point, fully self-driving cars, despite the promises, despite the fact that the technology is there or is rapidly getting there, don't expect it anytime soon.
Yeah, and I say that.
Go out on a limb here.
Yeah, no, don't. The reason I'm a little hesitant is that the federal government has set down some base guidelines for autonomous vehicle testing, and then the states followed up with their own guidelines. So the federal government created a floor,
Okay. Got to
For
do basics. The
basic
stuff.
things, but there's a patchwork of regulations that are likely always going to exist among the 50 states that are going to make automobile manufacturers consider what they should or shouldn't include for each state. So that can get very.
You could very well
You
have
get
a
into the
situation
weeds.
where you've got one state that says autonomous driving is fine, and as soon as you cross the state line,
Right.
all these requirements or limits.
So
or
you have
whatever.
to consider whether or not you can turn on autonomous driving for, let's say, driving in densely populated areas or just on the highway.
Downtown Manhattan. What could go wrong?
I think you're going to see this evolve in the public transport space, like buses and taxis, things like that. I think you're going to see that there first before you start talking about individual car owners getting a self-driving car or totally self-driving. Like, think about all the different things that you step on when you're traveling. For example, sometimes I don't even know if there's a human being as part of it. Like, for example, at the airport,
Yeah.
when you get into one of those monorails, I'm assuming there's someone
Driving
there.
It might not be.
Or-
Actually, there are a lot of
you know,
smart. We've done
so-
some reporting on smart cities where they
but,
have these things that
you
are
know,
automated.
So
Right.
so
There
let's
isn't a
let's
person.
assume that at the airport, the ones that have the monorails that take you from the main terminal to wherever your gate is,
Right.
let's assume that those are self-automated.
I think they are in Orlando, at least in what I've
Yeah.
heard here.
Okay. So, but that knowing, like, I don't know this. All I know is that I've traveled many times and stepped on and stepped off, and again, because it's one way, and
Right.
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
all-
like you're gonna have birds coming in or
people running in front of
running
you.
in front of you. So, but again, there's a level of trust that is like, I feel like I trust this because you've never heard of a monorail accident,
Right.
or
Yet.
yet.
But now consider.
But then the next step is like, well, maybe I don't know or I don't realize, but what if a bus pulls up and it's a route that is a pretty safe route where you're not going to have outside interference? You might start seeing self-driving, like maybe from the airport, like from one gate to the next gate.
Or from the airport out to the car rental place.
Right.
The little tram
Right.
bus that takes you around.
Right, now you still have more cars involved, but it's less than as on a major highway or city street, that type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, you'll basically it'll be like, what's the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he rips the autonomous driver out of the
Total Recall.
Total Recall.
Excellent movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah, because there was an actual robot driver
Yes,
too with a
yeah.
little hat. He was great.
Where would you like to go, sir?
It's important for your robot driver to look like a real bus driver. I should pause real quick since we are Facebook living this live on Facebook. In case we have any questions, producer Chris here will let us know. So if you've got any questions as we're talking about autonomous driving or what's coming up next.
I think we should get a shot
Well,
of producer Chris
Yes,
just so that
producer
people know
Chris,
that
can you
it's
wave?
not a robot.
As a real person, he looks like a real person.
We
yes.
actually do have a question, but it is for the wireless charging. So
Okay.
we'll just
hold that
wait.
question
All right.
for
Yep.
1 second. We'll get into that. All right, good. So moving on. The other story that you had last week, which I thought was really interesting, Lucas, there's been a lot of talk about the new iPhone.
Yeah.
In fact, the Wall Street Journal had a story this morning about Apple outsourcing the screen to Samsung. Thank God. I hope it's not batteries.
Oh boy,
Well, you never know.
large batteries,
Large battery. Yeah, big batteries.
large exploding batteries.
And also, interestingly enough, doing away with the Lightning connector, possibly for a USB-C type connector for the new iPhone. This is for the one that will be out in the fall.
Right.
But the story you had was about the fact that this analyst who has had a pretty good track record
Yeah.
predicting what
Excellent.
Apple's going to do with its devices is raising the real possibility of real wireless charging finally. You don't have to plug it in, you just set the phone down, whatever. So what's the possibility there? What's the likelihood that Apple might actually make that jump this year?
Yeah, it's Apple typically waits a couple of years before it rolls out.
Because this stuff's already in the market.
It's
Other
already in the
manufacturers are doing
Galaxy phones. It's in other lines, other phone lines. So
And you can
wouldn't
do it
be-
for the iPhone if you put a case on it.
Yeah, I
Like a
mean,
You can do that, yeah,
Yeah.
but that's not
You do that with
quite the
Right.
same
virtually any
as
phone
having
now,
it built
yeah.
in.
So having it built in, well, what's the advantage? You need to think about that. And for closely, there are several types. Let me just real
Yeah,
quick
go for it. No, explain. That's good.
So there's several types of wireless charging. First of all, you have tightly coupled. It's all magnetic resonance on
Sort
this
of like
level.
with the Apple Watch.
Exactly.
Boom.
Like the Apple Watch, you actually have to put a magnetic connector to the back of the watch to charge it.
Yep.
And that's called tightly coupled. Then there's loosely coupled. It's still magnetic resonance, but allows you a few millimeters or centimeters to adjust your phone in any.
So you've got something on the
Access
table,
you
whatever, you
want.
can kind of put it down. It doesn't have to be exactly
Right.
on the spot.
When
can
it
be-
first started out, you had to be exact on how you placed it on that pad. And as analysts have pointed out, and I tend to agree with them, what's the advantage if you have to worry about? I mean, it's keeping you from actually plugging the phone in versus laying it directly
What's
on a
the
pad.
real
There's no
advantage?
real
Yeah.
advantage to that.
Right.
So, but Apple may be taking a baby step with this. You know, they're coming into and they'll probably have something proprietary.
That's Apple.
They recently joined the Wireless Power Consortium, a very large consortium with many, many vendors who are members. Hundreds of vendors are members of this consortium. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to take their standard
Right.
and apply it to the iPhone. They rarely do, right?
Yeah.
They'll probably use something of that, or they're using the IP in that to help
To build their
construct
own whatever they're going to do with the
Right.
iPhone.
What would be really cool is the third type of charging, which has not hit the market at all, and that's radio frequency charging. And that allows you freedom to move around, a spatial freedom. So you walk into a room and it starts trickle charging your device immediately.
So this is radio
via-
wave, sort of like almost like Wi-Fi. It's
Right.
just beaming through the, and your phone is able to read these signals and somehow convert that to energy.
There's
to
two
charge the
cool
battery.
advantages to that. Not only that you can just move around, that's one advantage. The other one is your phone already has a Wi-Fi antenna in it. They just need to add one more antenna, which doesn't take up much more real estate, if any, compared to magnetic resonance charging, which requires a whole other piece of technology, which is a copper coil inside your phone to receive that charging.
Okay.
That takes up real estate. It's not much. It's paper thin, but it's still real
Well,
estate.
you know how
We're gonna-
Apple is when it comes to like
Slim
size.
phone,
They really
right.
want things small, so they're going to go for something that's going to take up as little room as possible. I'm
Right.
sure.
I don't expect Apple to take that much of a leap. They're not bleeding edge technology company to begin with. So what we may see is a baby step, maybe toward that someday. And did you see the other story about Disney actually rolling out their own form of wireless?
Yeah, tell me
spatial
about that.
charging?
Is it the same sort of thing where when you're walking through the Disney park, your device will start to charge if it's got this technology built in?
A little more close by. They could expand it to that eventually, but it's when you're within say an exhibit or an actual, let's say
One of the rides or
animatronic
whatever.
museum, or one of the
All the
rides.
presidents.
Yeah, I love that. That's my
I do
favorite.
too. I do too.
Yeah, your car could wirelessly charge. I mean, your phone could wirelessly charge someday. They've just rolled out.
Is that an experiment that they're
It's
trying?
an experiment. It's
Okay.
not. It's not something that's
They're
reality
not really.
right now.
Okay.
When I was at CES, I did talk to one of the companies that you had mentioned in your article. I think it was ASIA.
Yeah.
And their technology is called COTA, right?
Yeah.
COTA.
Yeah.
What they were showing off was they have ceiling tiles,
Yeah.
and so they put their technology into the ceiling tile, and then they kind of like you see this like you imagine this like cone of wireless.
You don't actually see anything.
No,
though.
no, no.
It's
Well,
not
'cause
like
it's
a light
wireless.
beams down and
No.
okay.
No, it's not like they could probably integrate it with a light bulb.
So you would
and then
know.
you would know if you're in the zone or not.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, so I imagined that there was this cone of wireless just kind of coming down, and then if you put your phone in there, it would start charging. But what they were talking about too is they have the technology to actually determine where the phone is, and then bounce the things off of walls so that the wireless doesn't go through you, because I think people would be worried about all of these radio waves
ask
hitting
about
you.
that. I mean,
They figure out where the human being is or where obstacles are, and then it's almost like the MIMO technology where they bounce off radio waves to the different antennas. But it was pretty impressive. I think the thing that I worry about most with the wireless charging is the speed of the charge. You plug something in, and sometimes you can feel like, all right, I'm down to like 35%. I want to get a quick charge, get it back up to 60%, rather than just kind of sitting there. And with wireless charging, doesn't it feel like
It takes a long time, right?
It takes longer than when you're plugged in with a wire.
No,
Have you ever done kind of tests around
I
that?
have, and it doesn't.
It's about the
really,
same
it's
speed.
the same
coupled,
speed?
not the RF, but tightly coupled.
Yeah.
RF would be more of a trickle charge.
Yeah.
Whereas tightly coupled magnetic resonance can charge at the same speed as a phone being plugged in.
Let's pause for a second. Chris, you said that there was a question about the wireless charging for the iPhone.
Yeah, we got a question from Abhishek Kumar. I do apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. Does wireless charging have any side effects on body parts?
Not yet that we know
No,
of.
not that we know of. No, it's able to also determine whether the metal in your phone is part of the wireless charging system, so it doesn't heat up.
Now,
'Cause-
maybe if you have a knee replacement, maybe your knee would get charged. No.
well, it can deter. The first
I'm
ones
kidding,
that
Abby.
came
I'm
out,
kidding.
did actually. If you put a quarter or a piece of metal between the phone and the charger, it would heat up. That
Okay.
was an issue at first. Now they've been able to bypass that, so that's not an issue anymore.
Okay, so no issues that we know of in terms of the wireless charging.
No, and you know what?
Given the technology.
You're surrounded by radio waves, and you're surrounded by radio frequency, and there's energy in that, and there's actually efforts out there to try to capture the energy from everyday radio frequency waves in order to power things, in order to so you're not wasting that energy that's flying around you all the time.
Right. I mean, it is interesting when you think about the, to get back to the larger iPhone issue for a minute. Apple's talking, or at least there's been a lot of speculation about a variety of things with the new iPhone 8 or iPhone 10,
Right.
since it's the 10th anniversary. Wireless charging is one of them. The OLED curved screen from Samsung is another. The move to a USB-C port.
Right.
And there's also talk that, there'll be like a top-end phone which will have all of these features, and then they'll do like sort of an updated version of the current phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've also heard 4 digits in terms of the price of the new phone. We're going over $1,000.
Whoa.
Yeah, but it's it's a pretty.
I'll let
powerful
Verizon
computer.
pay for that. I'll just sign a 2-year contract.
It'd be like a 3-year or a 4-year contract.
At this point, it's going to be about a 10-year contract. Okay, well, good. Well, I appreciate the update on the wireless charging. It gives me an idea for what's coming. Obviously, stay tuned. We'll know more in the fall. Now, moving on to our fun segment of the day. We got the Gadget Guru.
Hey.
With a gadget.
All right. This is kind of a wireless transition,
Yes.
too. So
planned it that
I
way.
have not yet posted this review on Network World, but it is coming soon. This is called the D-Lite.
Okay.
It's a cool name because, of course, I think of that band from the 80s. You remember D-Lite?
Yeah.
Groove is in the
I
house?
remember. I was too young for that.
Oh, stop it. You know it. You were singing a 70s song when we were
Staying alive.
prepping for this.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a light bulb,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
If you put it over your head, you're like, hey, I
Yeah.
have an idea.
Ding.
Yeah, there you go.
Like Ford. It's heavy.
It's heavy because there is technology inside this. Now, what the idea behind this D-Light is, it's an LED light.
Okay.
So
Energy efficient.
it's
right.
it's supposed to be energy efficient.
This isn't the
This
one like
is a-
Uncle Fester. You hold it and it lights up in your hand.
Wouldn't that be cool if it did? All of a sudden, it's
We
lit
should
up.
have planned that.
You put it in your mouth. And
They'll fix that in post production, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, but so you basically regular standard socket, you put it into the light bulb. Now,
Okay.
the other thing that the system includes is this adapter. So this adapter
Goes into the wall.
goes into your power outlet. You
Your
don't put it on a
3-prong.
power strip.
Okay.
They actually say just put this under the wall. It does have a pass through.
Okay.
So if you have a power strip that you want to plug into that
Doesn't waste
afterwards, it doesn't waste it. So you're not losing. I would say still use the bottom part because the top part if you put it on the top, then your
Right.
your bottom one is blocked. So, but then this acts as a power line adapter. So are you
Okay.
familiar with power line networking?
Talk to me.
Okay, so this also has an Ethernet jack
Okay.
here, and so when you connect this cable, you connect this into your router.
Yeah.
This basically enables all of the power line, all the power outlets within
In your
your
house.
to then be network enabled.
Okay.
So the idea is that you put this now in your light socket,
Yeah. Ding.
and then power line to this adapter,
Okay.
and then this adapter Ethernet to the router.
Okay.
This has Wi-Fi on it. So then
So this
you have
extends your
Wi-Fi,
Wi-Fi in
It
addition to
right.
bringing light.
So the idea behind everything on this is if you've got a dead spot, say you've got an area that's blocked by concrete wall, some of your building materials in your house, and there's this 10-foot by 10-foot area where you get no signal with your typical Wi-Fi because the wireless signal can't get through these walls or anything like that. But you do have a power outlet. You plug in a regular light, a lamp, and then basically you can then radiate Wi-Fi off of that and provide Wi-Fi coverage within this dead
where
spot.
can you buy this thing?
Oh, Lucas,
Really?
do you have
You've
an
got-
issue
you've got
with
some
your
dead
Wi-Fi
spots?
at home?
I totally do. Yeah. Well, my router's on one side of my house.
Right.
And it just happens to be convenient because that's where it's coming in. And when I go to the other side of my house, because I own a mansion,
Yeah.
it's great distance. We can't get Wi-Fi on our phones, so it dies at the other end of our house. And I keep thinking, I've got to move the router closer,
Right.
but then I have to go up in the attic.
Right, and
This would
there's
solve the
other
problem,
options
it sounds
available.
like.
You can get an extender. There's the whole Wi-Fi mesh stuff that's coming out where they have small little pockets and they all talk to each other. But this is just another concept that's out there. I think it's a really cool concept,
Yeah.
except for the fact that you now are jumping to 3 different kind of transmissions.
Right.
Your Wi-Fi to power line to Ethernet, and every time you do a hop, that does slow down your speed.
Right.
The other problem with this right now initially is that this only operates over the 2.4 gigahertz space.
I was going to ask about
so it's
that.
802.11b, G, and
N?
N, I think it might be 5
It's
gigs.
not AC.
It's
Okay.
not AC. It's
Okay.
not. It's not A. It's not A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not in the 5 gigahertz. If they could get a chip in there that does 5 gigahertz
But you
stuff,
know they will.
which yeah, eventually they will. Then we're talking really good speeds. So when I was connecting this, you got a 2.4, and those speeds are slower. But again, those are only slower over the LAN.
Right.
You know, up until your router. So if you're doing file transfers, it's going to
Right.
be slow. But for typical internet, you know, email, check
But
your
if
email,
you're
web
using this in
browsing.
an area where you're not getting any Wi-Fi anyway,
Right.
slow is better than nothing.
Right, slow will be better than that. Then you will actually be able to connect that. Now, again, I was able to still, you know, watch Netflix through this.
Right.
So, but again, this was also not with a lot of traffic too.
Right.
Once you have a lot of traffic in the house, then
Well,
then
the question I have, all right, so is the light bulb just sort of an add-on? You don't really need the light bulb to do the Wi-Fi. I mean, that's just
no, you don't
it's just a light bulb.
necessarily
It's
need
just
the
a
light bulb.
great way to-
You don't want to lose the
You know,
lamp.
I think
What's
when
that?
Don't want to lose the lamp.
I
Well,
think when I
I want
turned
my lamp to be wired.
I think when I turned
Or wireless.
the switch off,
Yeah.
the Wi-Fi stopped. But then they have an app that can control. So again, you can take the phone app and connect to the light, and then it you know has like this dimmer. You know, this almost makes it like one of those Philips Hue
Yeah.
lights.
Do you have to do the whole power line?
Yeah,
Plug this in, and the whole
unfortunately, you
system?
do
You can't
s-
just plug this into a socket and get Wi-Fi extended.
Now that would be interesting to see if you could plug it in and then tell the Wi-Fi to go to an existing router, but then that wouldn't solve your dead spot issue.
Right.
This is really aimed at kind of the dead spot. And I've seen some other companies that have taken this concept and they're going to have little things that you plug into just outlets, and then all of a sudden you'll have Wi-Fi coverage in those areas.
I think this is, I mean, not this in particular,
Yeah.
but boy, it's
The whole
a need
concept
out
of
there
being
to
able to
see
extend.
It, yeah.
I love the concept. In execution, they have a few bugs and a few
Well,
problems.
is this like
This
Gen
is-
1?
This is probably the first generation, and this is a company based out of Singapore. So there's some language translation issues with the app, and there's some typos in the user guide and things like that they haven't quite gotten it yet. But once they do, if they make that next generation, or if you see other companies come out with stuff like this, and again, power line networking, you're also then reliant on the age of your house and how much the power lines are good or bad within your own house.
Yeah.
How enlightening.
Oh,
Been waiting for that for about
You
5
have.
minutes. How enlightening, yes.
That's a
You
great-
brought light to us.
But,
Okay, cool. I'm going to presume no questions on the D-Light light. So I think we're going to leave it right
Delightful.
there. Then. It is delightful. It's delovely. Lucas, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. Keith, thanks for showing up.
As always, Ken.
As usual, that's a wrap.